All good.
How was your trip?
It's good. Weddings are always fun.
Oh, it was a wedding. Oh. For some reason, I was just seeing a lot of Larry David popping up on socials talking about how he would never travel on a plane to go to a wedding.
Well, I'm a big fan of weddings, so I'll do plenty of that.
Ah, I see. What is going on? Not that one at all.
Hello.
Hello. Was a bit worried for a second there that I'd be the only one.
We're here.
But it's the day after 4th of July, so I'm honestly not that surprised. I will give it another minute before we jump in. And I am already live streaming to YouTube. Quite the attendance tonight in the audience. I will make both of you co-hosts as well. All right, we will go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. This is the July 2023 meeting for ANC 1 East Transportation and Public Spaces meeting. Just a few administrative notes. I will first take the roll call. Then we will go over the agenda, and we have several topics that we'll be talking about tonight. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And I will change my mode so it is not dark and makes it a little bit easier to see. Okay, hopefully that is a little bit easier for folks. And if anyone in the audience is not on the committee and I have not promoted you, please raise your hand now and I can do so. I do not see any names, but just in case someone is logged in as a different name. Okay. Cameron, I see you are raising your hand, but that is just for the presentation portion. All right. So I will now call the roll. Committee member Schaaf.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Jacobson, that's me, present. Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Footer. Neither of those folks are present. And then moving on to the remainder of our committee members, committee member Remington, not present. Committee member Batal, not present. And that is it. So we have 3 of the 6 folks on the committee here tonight, and we'll go ahead and go through the rest of the agenda. So this meeting was noticed to the community via listserv, social media, the website, and our e-calendar. We'll have it's through the Zoom platform, and if you are dialed in through the phone and not on the Zoom platform, you can raise your hand by dialing, I believe that is *6. I thought I had this on my screen, but I will pull that up in a second once we get to the rest of the meeting. And now I will present the agenda. So for the consent agenda, we just have approval of the June 2023 ANC 1E Transportation and Public Spaces meeting minutes. We'll have time for community announcements and presentation. And then we have a few items on official business. I'll make a motion with unanimous consent that we approve the agenda. Is there any opposition to that motion? All right, that leads us to the consent agenda. As a reminder, all matters listed under consent are considered by a routine and enacted by one motion. I will now make that motion to approve the consent agenda, which is approving the June 2023 TPS public meeting minutes. Is there any dissent? All right, seeing none, that motion passes as well. So we're now moving on to the community announcements and presentations. So for folks that are here for the meeting and have a topic further on, so if you're part of the Howard Lot 3 residential project public space application presentation, or for the Banneker Park amplified sound permit, please hold until we get to that portion of the agenda. But for any other community members that have other items that they'd like to bring up, please feel free to raise your hand now. And I see there is some chat. Thank you, Committee Member Schaaf. That is *6 to toggle mute and unmute, and *9 to raise and lower your hand if you are dialed in. And Committee Member Schaaf and Commissioner Ray, do either of you have any announcements for the community?
Nothing from me.
Likewise, nothing from me.
I'll just make a quick announcement since I mentioned this at the ANC meeting, but I know there have been quite a few questions about the diving board at Banneker Pool. Something that the Parks Department is currently working on. They may not be able to place the diving board back, depending on some of their follow-ups with the Department of Health, due to changes in health code since that diving board was first put in. But as soon as I have more information, I will share that with the ANC and with this committee. All right, I've given a couple of minutes for folks to raise their hands, and I have not seen anyone else raise their hands, so we will go ahead and move on to official business. And if it's okay with the folks on the committee, I might actually move the Banneker Park amplified sound permit up just a tad, because I expect that'll be a much quicker discussion than the Howard Lot 3 residential project and public space application.
Sounds good.
Cool. And then in terms of recent TPS related resolutions. So as always, you can find information on our resolutions on anc1e.org. I will pull that up quickly. And if you go to the meeting minutes and related resolutions, you can always click into June or May and see the most recent updates. So I'll pull that up for folks just so you can see what we had passed recently. So last week, we had a resolution in support of the 8th Street transportation package that was discussed at our last meeting. And June. We also passed the scooter speed shift, a dual speed strategy for safer DC, which is calling on DDOT to increase the speed of e-scooters to 15 miles an hour and on the road and down to 7.5 miles an hour on the sidewalk from the current speed of 10 miles an hour. And then a resolution recommending expenditure of highway education funds for automated traffic enforcement in school zones. And then the last thing that is relevant to the committee is just a resolution requesting prioritization of 3 traffic safety inputs to DDOT. So as a reminder, if you have any traffic safety inputs that you want the committee to support, you're more than welcome to email me, or for the committee members, you're more than welcome to bring them up at committee and we can draft a resolution for DDOT. This is something that DDOT announced recently where they will take ANC input on prioritizing the TSI requests and take that into account. So again, if there are any TSIs that you have that you want more emphasis on, you're more than welcome to bring them here. All right, jumping back to the agenda, that moves us on to the Banneker Park Amplified Sound Permit. If you are here to present on this, could you please raise your hand? I think at least Cameron Patterson is, but not sure if there are any other folks from that group that will be joining to present. Okay, I'm going to promote you, Cameron. All right, Cameron, can you hear me? You are breaking up slightly for me. Oh, you are breaking up slightly for me. Oh, a little bit.
Give me 1 second. I'll step outside.
You're also echoing, but maybe I'll get better when you step outside.
Ooh. I'm sorry about that.
No worries at all.
No, we outside.
Cameron, thanks for emailing about your request for the amplified sound permit for your event. It sounded great, but I won't steal any of your thunder. So if you just want to chat briefly about the event and some of your plans for mitigating sound impacts on the neighborhood.
Yes, sir. And also, I wrote a little something really quick I wanted to share with the committee as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. So I first want to say thank you for letting me speak, for giving me this opportunity. And so as a Howard student, I wanted to discuss the important matters, that concern, I think, the university and also the neighborhood. I really have on top of, I guess, the sound permit, sort of 3, I would say pertinent requests. And so firstly, I would like to sort of emphasize the importance of building a stronger connection between Howard University and the ANC, this committee. As you know, Howard University is not just a campus, but a vibrant part and a dynamic part of the community. And we also share, obviously, the same streets, parks, and I think we share the same aspirations for a thriving and harmonious community. By fostering a stronger bond between Howard University and the neighborhood, we can create a mutually beneficial relationship that enhances the overall quality of life, not only for Howard University students, but for residents of the neighborhood. And so I was hoping this connection can be built through collaborative initiatives, better dialogue between the local government and Howard University students. And hopefully share resources as well, whether it be, connections and things of that, things like that. And so secondly, I'm also here requesting sort of an exemption, I would say, one big problem that we find, all Howard University students, when we do try to hold events at Banneker Park specifically and other parks in the neighborhood, the permits are quite expensive, and as you know, we're college students, and so I want to say that our number one concern is obviously safety, and as well as we obviously know that a lot of the residents in our neighborhood spend quite a good amount of money to reside here, and the last thing they want to hear at 9 or 10 p.m. on a weekday night or even on a weekend night is loud music and things like that coming from outside their window. And so I want to say our as I just said, our number one goal is safety, but we also want to follow regulations involving the sounds and things of that nature. But to do that, it first starts with getting a permit. And I was not sure. I tried looking, but I wasn't sure how or if it was possible to receive exemptions or at least reduce costs, so we can go through official channels instead of just, throwing. I'm trying to find a good word. Some of the parties and some of the events that have been at Banneker have been a little bit too much and excessive, I would say myself. But furthermore, so I'm with a larger group. I'm a co-founder of a event curation group called The Collective, and we're really committed to maintaining the cleanliness and integrity of the park. So as I've emailed you before, we've held Banneker cleanups and park cleanups before. But I wanted to state that, after every event, whether it be a fun party or, painting or yoga at the park, we will do our best to leave the park better than we found it before we got there. Because we also know it's not just our space. It obviously Banneker Park has, been a Howard staple for decades. But as the community is changing, we recognize that it's not solely a space just for students and for our community. It's it's bigger than that. And I think finally, one of the last things I wanted to add is that we are, I said it before, but safety is our biggest concern. And whenever it comes to getting permits with amplified sound and through I believe DPR, we've noticed that some students and peers, they've gone to great lengths to fabricate permits and to or just not have it at all. And we see that causes a great concern, or great issue in terms of safety. And so I'm trying to think of a good way to put this, but whether a permit is, I think, in a student's hand or not, as you saw during the last school year, students will do whatever they like, and they will try throwing events at the park without the necessary permits and without following the proper regulations. And so we're really that's why we're really hoping to build a stronger connection with I guess this committee and yourself, because we want to obviously abide by the regulations and make sure that the residents that you serve are taken care of just as much as the people that me and my group of friends try to serve as well. So in conclusion, again, we're really hoping to foster a strong connection and do whatever it takes to maintain that connection and hopefully not have to I guess see the same things that happened last year, with random events popping up while baseball games are going on. It just, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I would like, I think the only other thing I would like to add is a few of my partners had questions, because we obviously, if we're throwing events and everything, we can control the decibel level, but usually whenever law enforcement comes, they don't really tell us what decibel range we should be in. And so it's things like that in the regulations that if we could work together, we think it would make a well, I guess a better time for everybody.
Yeah. So to answer, I think a couple of your questions there. One, we don't, as far as I'm aware, we don't really have any jurisdiction over the cost of the permit.
Of course.
Maybe Commissioner Ray knows otherwise, but I think that is all handled by DPR.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, for the sound issues, like really what I'm looking for is just like that you'll be responsive to community concerns. Like as long as it's not an unreasonable level, I'm not too worried. I live like a block and a half away from, I guess like 2 blocks away from the baseball field, and walk by there all the time. And sound travels, but it doesn't travel that far to the houses in the neighborhood if the sound isn't too loud. So really what I'm just looking for is someone that's willing to pick up the phone if there are complaints, because it's easier to just like give that number out and have people call and ask to turn the loud music down than it is to call the police and then wait for the police to arrive. And it just makes things a little bit more complicated and can be escalatory when it doesn't need to be. And to your last piece of working together, happy to work more with you on other things and finding other ways to involve the community. Definitely agree that there are just sometimes events that happen at Banneker, whether or not there's a permit, and that it is what it is. And appreciate you coming to the committee with asking for our support for the amplified sound permit for DPR.
Yes, sir. I guess from that, I just would, I guess the only thing I would like to ask is, I'm not sure if you or the other commissioner might have connections or anything like that, or know where we could reach out to the proper channels, I guess, to receive the proper permits and things like that. And I think that was where I was getting at from that. But yes, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ray. I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, sure. Cameron, just so I'm clear though, are you actually applying for a specific permit on a specific date at this point, or are we just talking in general?
So currently right now we have a tentative date of August 19th for sound permits, and for a permit we're trying to apply for a permit to use Banneker Park. So yes, sir.
Okay, so August 19th, and what time of day are you planning?
So we were planning on doing 2 p.m. until sunset. I realize I think the permits, would like them not to go past sunset. So yes, sir.
Okay. I think on the cost issue, we can certainly we can put you in touch with the people at DPR that handle the permits, and then speak to them about the cost issue. I mean, I'm looking at their list. I mean, depending on the size, how many individuals are you planning to have at the event?
So currently we've have RSVPs for around 400 people, but okay, it's over a month, 2 months away, and so we know a lot of people want RSVP. I think we're expecting around 1,000 number or less.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so that's a fairly large, and yes, the costs do start to go up when you're talking about groups of that size. So I don't know what DPR's flexibility is necessarily going to be, but we can
yes, sir.
We can look at that help you with that as best we can.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I'll just say, I don't think that there should, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem to have an event outside before those hours, because it's 10 o'clock would start to be the time when, a lot of the noise regulations begin to kick in. So at that hour of the day, it's really just about being responsive and receptive to what the neighbors are saying. Do you plan to put anything out into the neighborhood that kind of lets people know what's going on? Try to invite the neighbors to attend?
And I would say that we have no we don't have any what's the word, no objection to doing so, especially a notice and an invitation. We would actually be happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly reach out to those neighbors that surround the park that are going to be able to hear what's going on, so they at least understand what's happening, that they know the hours of it, because sometimes that frustration builds simply from not knowing anything.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I guess one more point too. I'm very thankful that you will hopefully be getting me in touch with the right people in the DPR. And as I said, safety is, I think, our number one concern when it comes to holding an event this size. And so, if you wouldn't mind, we would actually, like to be put in touch with law enforcement or with, the right people in that regard too.
Yeah, you're right in that you might want to notice MPD if you're going to have an event that large. But that's good. That's all I have.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I'll take that follow-up to reach out to DPR and figure out what involvement we need from law enforcement. Commander Schaaf.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, I support certainly the TPS committee working more and having some stronger dialogue with Howard students and Howard community overall. And I did also want to note that there is a fee waiver that DPR has. So if you look in their regulations, they indicate, what the fee waivers are and what kinds of organizations are eligible for them. I can't say to what extent your particular event or Howard University would satisfy those, but they do have that existing program. So I encourage you to take a look at that.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And one other thing I'll add, Cameron, what's your expected audience? Is this mostly Howard students or?
Yes, sir. So I would say the expected audience is mostly incoming freshmen, because it will be the returning week of the school year. So we're expecting a lot of freshmen, their parents, and like you said, we would actually like, for members of the community to come out to as well, because we're trying, at least the group that I sort of run, we're trying to sort of better we're trying not to sort of the word I'm looking for, hold events strictly for Howard students and the younger crowd. We would like it to be sort of a community effort. So we're planning on having a few food trucks, face paint, water balloons, things like that as well. And I think, like I mentioned to you in our emails, we will be having a Banneker cleanup the following day around 8 a.m. With one of the on-campus community organizations. And if any of the commissioners, have any organizations outside of the Howard University campus that that might want to join in on that and bring more people as well, we would be happy for that as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm happy to work with you on that. I do a lot of cleanups in the area, so happy to help with that too. The other thing I'll add is I hope that you can encourage folks to consider like public transit and ways of getting to the park if there are a lot of parents coming, because there isn't that much public parking in the area, and if 1,000 people try to drive there, it's going to be hectic for everyone involved.
Yes, sir.
And I'm happy to work with you on like what the options are there. There's a bus line and a few metro lines too. So
That would be great. I think informational flyers as well we could post, definitely.
all right. So I think we should work more together on this. If it is the 19th, I think you would need support within the next few weeks, right? Did DPR give you a timeline?
I believe while doing, I guess, our own personal research, I think it said that we did need to have the application in a month prior, I believe.
Yeah, so that would be within 2 weeks, and that would be before our ANC meeting anyway. So we'll probably have to work offline, and then I'll talk to some of the other commissioners just to make sure we're thinking about this the right way. Yeah, because even if we vote on this, it wouldn't get to the ANC at this point anyway. So I'm not sure that it really matters for us to vote here to begin with.
Oh, yes, sir. I understand. I would be more than happy, I guess, to within these next few weeks continue to talk and kink out anything. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I'll take point on that since I live 2 blocks away. I'm the commissioner for the area. So, okay.
All right.
Any other questions or thoughts? Committee member Schaff or
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
For letting me speak. Yes, sir.
And then any questions from the members of the community? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Ray, I see that you unmuted.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to point out, I would encourage the young man, Cameron, to put his application in on time. And if we have to follow up with DPR ourselves, with a letter, we can always do that later. But make sure your application is on time. That's all.
Got it.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Cameron. I'll be in touch.
Thank you again. Have a good one.
Next on the agenda is the Howard Lot 3 residential project public space application. I see a lot of folks in the audience. I'm not sure who is here to present on that. If you are, could you please raise your hand? Okay. I will promote the two of you to, oh, there's a few of you. I see where most of our audience is coming from. Did I get everyone? Oh, maybe one more. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. Who is going to be taking the lead on the presentation?
Hi. Good evening, Commissioner Jacobson. My name is Lila Batiste with Holland and Knight. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. All right, are you able to see my screen?
I can see it now.
Okay, great. So again, Lila Batiste, and I'm joined by my colleague John Oliver with Holland and Knight. And we're representing Quadrangle, which is the developer of the project that is the subject of the Public Space Committee application referenced on my screen. We're joined this evening by Marco Chieri with the architecture firm Cooper Carey, Daniel Solomon with Grove Slade, the traffic engineers, Sunil Charles with FICA, civil engineers for the project, and then representing the developer Quadrangle are Bob Knopf and Milad Bahamin. I think both are, I see Milad, I think they're both on the phone, on the screen. And so we have just a brief presentation on the public space application, which is scheduled to be presented to the Public Space Committee on August 24th. And we are here seeking the committee's support and ultimately the ANC's support of the application. Just a brief overview of the application. We are seeking approval for various public space elements in connection with the mixed-use project that's proposed on the west side of Georgia Avenue, immediately north of W Street Extension and the Bond Bread building site. The mixed-use building consists of approximately 26,000 square feet of ground floor retail and approximately 437 residential units above. This is the first of a multi-phased redevelopment of a larger 3.5 acre site, which is owned by Howard. And that site extends from Berry Place on the north all the way down to the W Street extension. And the proposed mixed-use building that is the subject of the Public Space Committee application is permitted as a matter of right on the site because of the underlying MU10 zoning. And so the next slide just shows the numerous public space elements that are included in the application. So, and I will tell you that Marco Pieri and Daniel Solomon will go through these in more detail, but I just wanted to summarize the curb cut locations that are being proposed that are covered in the application. Two at the Bryant Street extension on Georgia Avenue and the 8th Street sides, and these will facilitate the private street that will function as Bryant Street. There are curb cuts on 8th Street, two additional curb cuts on 8th Street that will provide access to the parking garage and loading areas. The project includes the construction of new sidewalks along 8th Street and Georgia Avenue with a minimum width of 8 feet that will enhance pedestrian circulation around the site. And then there are curb extension proposed on 8th Street to enhance pedestrian safety, street trees along the project, and then balconies and projections over the property line as part of the architectural elements and facades. So that's just our introductory overview. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Marco with Cooper Carey, who will discuss the project in more detail, highlighting the location of the public space elements. And then Daniel Solomon with Borough of Slade will follow, discussing the pedestrian and traffic circulation for the project as they relate to the public space elements. Thank you. Marco?
All right. Hey everyone, I'm Marco Pieri with Cooper Carey. I am the project architect on the HU Lot 3 residential portion of this larger development. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Thanks for having us today to discuss this. All right, so I wanted to give a brief project overview just to familiarize everybody who may not be as familiar with the project and kind of go through some of the items that that Layla just brought up. So context and site, we were just speaking about Banneker a moment ago. The site overall for Lot 3 is directly south of Banneker along Georgia Avenue between Georgia Avenue and 8th Street Northwest. It's kind of at the bottom southwest corner of Howard University, as you can see on the diagram to the left here, with this dashed line and the white site here showing the overall Lot 3 3.5 acre site. Today we're going to be primarily focusing on HU Lot 3 residential, which is the first phase. just here on the right, you could see that that's this southern portion of the site. As we were looking at the overall redevelopment, it was really important for us to connect through to some of the existing street grids. So at the north edge of the residential block, you could see that we're proposing a private right-of-way, meaning private land, but we'll have vehicular traffic allowable through the site at Bryant Street Northwest to allow that to kind of connect to the streets grid. And at the center of the site, the Bond Bread development is going to be creating a W Street extension from W Street from the east to the west. Just to the left, you know, there's another planned development there, I believe, and across the street to the right, we have the Barnes and Nobles, the Axis Dormitory, Howard University Interdisciplinary Research Building, and to the north, you know, those are future phases. Jumping to the next slide, just wanted to start with describing the building overall. This is a view from the southeast corner of the site, from Georgia Avenue looking to the northwest. You can see here there's no porosity, no connection through at W Street. It's currently a large Howard University parking lot. And what we're proposing putting there or developing is an 11-story residential building with 11 stories above grade, 2 levels below grade for underground parking. On the ground floor, it's primarily retail uses with residential lobby, loading dock access, parking garage access, and some other kind of egress pathways. The same slide, shifting to the kind of rendering at the southeast corner. This is just kind of showing the park or plaza that's going to be a private plaza like on our property, but it will be kind of open to the public at the south edge of the site. So W Street will be running from left to right in front of you here. And this kind of shows you the overall massing of the building. We're really focusing a lot on the pedestrian realm and creating a really lively and energetic ground plane with a lot of porosity and movement that we're trying to accommodate, as well as spaces for people to gather and meet. Looking at the site plan overall, I'm highlighting a few of the main features along the streetscape and public right-of-way, as well as I'll just start with a couple of the green arrows. At the bottom right, the green arrow there is the primary residential entrance. Residential is in yellow and retail is in pink. And then there's shared space in purple, and some of that, or the maroon color, some of that's back of house as well. So I'm highlighting the bottom right because you know, we're actually bringing some retail and residential lobby together to activate the ground plane there at the southeast corner of the site. We have at the plaza at the south a retail elevator that will take you down to the retail parking spaces at level P1. As we move around the west edge of the site, in the blue arrow, the first one kind of mid-block, you'll see this is a loading dock, internalized loading. So we're proposing a curb cut here to accommodate that for you know, trash, recycling, and move-in trucks all to be able to turn in here, turn around, and you know, do all of the unloading inside of the building. Just north of that, you could see a curb cut for the 2 levels of underground parking. Some of those parking spaces will be parking that are for retail and or for the public, as well as the remainder will be for the residential building itself. One of the distinguishing, like one of our first moves when we were designing this building was, you know, I was out walking the site. I live a couple blocks west of this site, and you know, I spend a lot of time in Banneker and go to the pool there. Slightly disappointed about the diving board as well, but you know, health and safety is important as well. But as you move down the site along Georgia Avenue, the existing property for this project is actually straddling the existing sidewalk. But I noticed with the rapid bus lane along that edge, it just feels very, very tight. I went out there and measured a lot of where the existing curb is, where the fencing is for the parking lot. And at the southeast portion of the site, it gets to about 11.5 feet wide from the face of the curb. And as you move further up the block, it pinches down to even 9 feet at some locations. And that's from the face of the curb to the existing kind of fencing. So one of our first moves is we wanted to, as we were bringing Bryant Street through, we wanted to create this opening that connected, the pedestrian right of way and the pedestrian realm from Howard University across Bryant. And so we opened up the building and splayed it out a little bit so that this ground plane is much more robust, accommodating larger groups of people and students and community members alike to cross more safely to away from the rapid bus lane along Georgia Avenue. So you can see that in the architecture here. So we've on the ground plane, it pinches down from or opens up to about 21 feet, 6 inches at the northeast corner of the building, 25 feet, 1 inch at the southeast corner of the building. And there's a location in the center where we have the fire command center as well as the garage outdoor intake that squeezes down to about 12'6". But we wanted to maintain at least 8 clear plus the 4-foot tree pits along the edges. You could also notice the street trees along both 8th Street Northwest and Georgia Avenue Northwest. And a few of the other things that we've proposed are widening the crosswalk at the southwest corner of the site at 8th Street and W, as well as at the northwest corner of the site here to create a safer place for pedestrians to cross, a little bit more pedestrian-friendly environment. But the building also pushes back on the west side of the site by a few feet, and it raises up and cantilevers back out to the property line above. So that's where we'll get into some of the projections following that. Finally, one of the things we wanted to highlight is 8th Street Northwest currently has, parallel parking on both sides of the street. We're proposing that the west side of the street would not have parallel parking, but it would be a two-way street with parallel parking, a few spaces here on the right side adjacent to our site. Finally, curb cut at the northeast, as Layla described, connecting Bryant Street, and then at the northwest connecting Bryant Street on both sides. Moving to the next slide, these are I'm just kind of re-highlighting some of the things that you've seen in our submission, perhaps. These are some from the landscape architects showing kind of the street paving patterns and those new crosswalks, as well as the actual street paving colors and design to a greater level of detail. As we move to 8th Street and Georgia Avenue Northwest, just wanted to highlight the pinch point here, 9'8" width here. It gets a little tighter right at the point there, but it contains 8 feet wide. And then, it opens up to the north and the south along Georgia Avenue. And then again here at 8th Street, you can see here there is, continuation of curb here so that as the pedestrian is crossing the loading dock and the parking ramp, you could kind of see and also get to a place of safety. We didn't want to create too wide of a loading dock, but we wanted to continue that kind of streetscape environment by having an additional tree here and things like that along the streetscape, so it feels very vibrant. On the south edge of the site, here's again this bulb out at the southwest corner of the site, and you can see at the southeast corner of the site, the crosswalk will be slightly adjusted so that the future to align with the future corner of the building. Looking at here's just an example from the west corner of the site of some of the retail spaces and some of the retail canopies, just to give you an idea of the vibrancy and some of the architecture and how it's going to relate to the public plaza in front of the south edge of the site. We wanted to keep a very vibrant space and really accommodate people to come and stay there multiple times of the day and evening. So to jump towards the building exterior and projections, we also submitted a diagram that showed projections, an exhibit that showed all the projections along 8th Street Northwest as well as Georgia Avenue. I've highlighted a couple of the kind of prime locations where we could show this on the exterior of the building. We'll start with I guess let's start with 8th Street Northwest. So along this edge, this is a typical level above looking downwards. So you're seeing a couple of the balconies that do project beyond the property line along 8th Street and then onto the private property to the north. The balconies, I've kind of highlighted the depth at which those project outwards. So at this northwest corner, there's a balcony that's at levels 3 through level 10 that's projecting 3'6" approximately out to the west over the sidewalk below. Below that, at 12 feet above the grading, we have some retail canopies that are going to become signage ban locations and canopies to kind of protect people coming in and out from the immediate elements from the retail zones. So that canopy at a lower elevations projecting out 2'8" approximately. These balconies along the west side are kind of a repeating angular form that mimics the architecture of the building and the angle that Georgia Avenue reorients itself on the east side of the site. So we've tried to articulate the exterior facade to represent some of the angular forms within the building itself from a larger macro kind of perspective. And we think this creates a more dynamic kind of exterior elevation. And so these repeating balconies all project out right around 3'9" across the property line. And then moving to the south, again, we get to the retail canopy that's below, and that's 2'10". And then at the southwest corner, we have this kind of concrete, cast in place concrete frame element that's part of the kind of the driving architectural, one of the main materials and features of the building. And so this does project further out with a vertical wall, 6'5". So I'm going to jump down to the next image, which begins to kind of show you where those items are occurring. So this is the northwest corner, some of the areas I already highlighted. And you can see here the projection that is 2 foot, sorry for the slow loading, the projection 2'8" is this retail canopy below. So that's occurring about 12 feet above grade. The corner balcony that's projecting 3'6" approximately is 32 feet above grade, and it stacks all the way up from levels 3 through level 10. And then the balconies to the south that have the same angular articulation, those are also at approximately 33 feet above grade where the balcony projections actually start. So we tried keeping those a lot higher so that they're not impeding upon public space, but are more just for building articulation. As we move to the southwest corner, you can see here the large concrete frame element that I alluded to. That's intended to kind of frame out this southern massing and create vertical vents and forms within the architecture so that this large building doesn't feel as massy. But this element here projects out 6'10". So it projects at this horizontal plane around 25 feet above grade. And then it runs vertical, the height of the building all the way to the penthouse level where it continues that same profile as the horizontal plane down low. The second zone here, the 12 feet above grade canopy, which projects out 2'10" beyond the property line, similar to the northwest corner of the building. And then finally, we have our repeating balconies that project 3'8" across the property line, starting again at level 3. So that shows you both the northwest and southwest corners of the site. Finally, wanted to highlight the northeast corner of the building. So you could see on this diagram to the right, the property line is pretty close to the edge of our building. So we only project over it on a few of these balconies because the overall massing, due to us trying to open up the street pedestrian plane, the overall massing turns back away from the street in order to really bring pedestrians down to the public plaza at the edge of Georgia Avenue and W Street, and same kind of thing that's happening at the northeast here. So the balconies here, this one is projecting 2'3", and then that number actually decreases down to 10 inches, and then it's fully on site for the balcony further down. And those occur again at level 3 and above, which is approximately 24 feet above grade on this side of the site, maybe 24 or 25 feet. And then depending on the grading. And then at the northeast corner, we have a balcony that's projecting just 2 2 foot across the property line here, just at the edge. The other side kind of sits only 4 inches across the property line. And then this vertical frame element just clips the corner of the property line here. And those elements, sit approximately 24 feet above grade at this lowest level. And then this concrete frame element here sits about 14 feet above grade, where it comes across the property line by about 1 foot. So that's the final slide that I had to kind of go through and hand it over to Mr. Solomon to finish up the portion related to parking and access.
Thanks, Margo. Good evening, all. Daniel Solomon, a transportation planner and principal with Grove Slade. Marco already gave a great overview of the project, so I just wanted to spotlight some of the transportation highlights of this project. So vehicular and loading access will be from 8th Street, with both curb cuts meeting DDOT's design and engineering manual standards for both width and spacing. All loading will be head in, head out from 8th Street, which is also in line with DDOT standards. Bicycle access is primarily envisioned to take place via 8th Street as well, connecting to the long-term bicycle rooms on the ground floor and in the garage. There'll be short-term bicycle parking spaces along the perimeter of the site. Regarding parking, there'll be 204 vehicular parking spaces located in the below-grade garage, which meets zoning requirements. Loading will be accommodated by 2 30-foot loading berths and 1 20-foot service and delivery space, meeting zoning requirements. And as I mentioned, all loading maneuvers will be head in, head out through public space, which is in line with DDOT standards. There'll be on-street parking on the east side of 8th Street, and the project will provide curb extensions at the northeast corner of W Street extension and at 8th Street Northwest, and also at the southeast corner of Bryant Commons and 8th Street Northwest. Curb extensions are a traffic calming feature that improve visibility for pedestrians at crossings and reduce the total crossing distance for pedestrians. They're a great safety feature to be implemented at intersections. The project will also include 240 long-term and 32 short-term bicycle parking spaces, significantly exceeding the requirements of zoning and DCMR. There'll be cargo tandem spaces to accommodate non-standard sized bicycles, and at least 10% of the long-term bicycle spaces will have access to electric outlets for electric bicycle and scooter charging, which is in line with current DDOT guidelines. The project will also be providing showers and lockers for employees, meeting zoning requirements for both showers and lockers. And I'll be available to answer any questions. So thank you for hearing us today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for the wonderful presentation. Really excited for this project. I live about 2 blocks away. So, and great to see all the bicycle parking that you're planning here. Since I went first last time, I'll see if Committee Member Schaaf or Commissioner Ray want to go first. Have any questions? Go for it, Commissioner Ray.
Thank you. A couple of questions. On the in one of your slides, you had the tree pits or the tree boxes. Can you show those again? As I'm wondering a little bit about how they'll be ornamented. It looks like you were planning to use some sort of fencing around them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we studied the surrounding neighborhood and looked at different tree kind of pit fencing design options. There didn't seem to be a 100% consistency, so we found one that seemed appropriate. This design that's shown at the Northwest, the landscape architect Studio 39, they designed this one to be similar. In some zones, we wanted it to be representative of what's happening near Atlantic Plumation, which is on either end. But then at the one at the top left of the plan, that's showing some examples of where there wouldn't be benches proposed. We think that the fencing is really important for keeping the vegetation alive and kind of trying to not promote dogs from using those spaces and killing the vegetation, as well as just kind of protecting the trees and the vegetation. But we thought that the design of the actual fencing was representative of the kind of projecting extrusions of the exterior architecture as well, and similar to one of the design options. I can't recall exactly where this similar option occurs within 4-block radius, but I believe this occurs in one other location near another development in the neighborhood.
Well, we have a number of these along Sherman Avenue in general, and they were installed probably in 2007, 2008, and from there. The only problem that we've had with that style over time is that when utility work or if a large vehicle kind of creeps up onto the curb or near the curb, they get damaged pretty easily and then don't seem to ever get replaced. And so that is one of my concerns, would be that, how are these going to hold up in the long term? And it kind of depends on what how you plan to continue using this building, and if you would be responsible for keeping them up, or if the city, because I know the city probably won't.
Committee member Ray, the applicant is required to provide a maintenance covenant for the improvements in public space.
Okay, very good. Well, then that solves that problem. On the plaza itself, would the grade in the public plaza be all the same? Is that the intent, or will there be curbs and a difference between where vehicles can go and where pedestrian, at like a sidewalk level? Does that make sense what I asked?
Yeah, so I think just to answer that, the plaza at the north along Bryant Commons, there is going to be a 22-foot right of way here at the center of the kind of Bryant Commons, what we're calling Bryant Commons, which will actually be Bryant Street. But the grading does transition down. So let me highlight here just to kind of explain what the breakthrough is. So here at this portion of the site here on the northeast, we have a grade drop of approximately 8 feet down. So there's actually a ramp up here and no curbs, a curbless section with elements that essentially would protect pedestrians that are walking along the north edge and the south edge of the site, placed along the edge here. And that's in order to, so for when this is closed down, we wanted to create a really minimal slope at the zone here, so that this could be where people could gather and stay, versus having a kind of consistent slope across the site that doesn't allow or accommodate places for people to gather as much. And then you can see here, there's a couple of zones that actually have sort of flat patio spaces outside of the retail zones that accommodate people to stay there, where there's a slightly steeper grade, 5% slope at the western edge of the site. And we handle the south edge of the site, I think the south edge of the site had a similar design. We worked with, we're kind of focusing more on, what we're building at, the plaza itself north of the future W Street that's going to be built out by Bond Bread, but it's a similar concept. We wanted to create a flat pedestrian plaza here at the northeast or the southeast, and then 2 separate zones that shift down the street along a steeper grade.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
It is. And I don't recall if you guys are the same development team at the Whole Foods Plaza area, but
That's a different developer.
it is a different developer. Okay. Because that one tends to fill with a lot of vehicles. So, and I know that's not the intent here. So just trying to visualize how would it be possible, or is there any way to close the street at when you wanted to keep everyone, just a pedestrian zone?
Yes, I think that's a long-term plan, is to have programmed elements and to be able to close the street for events such as, as discussed, like Howard's Homecoming, if they wanted to close down the street and things like that, or for other programmed events.
I mean, it would be helpful to build something into the infrastructure that would let you do that more readily, is one thing I would suggest. But
that's a great comment. Yes.
If bollards could be placed in positions that would then close the street up. One of the issues that we have with open streets, which will go along Georgia Avenue, this stretch of Georgia Avenue, is that we have to place a police officer at every intersection, because you otherwise can't keep people from going through. So this, again, is something to think about. And then the final, if you could talk a little bit about, you show the sidewalks and how the commercial spaces would interact with those sidewalks with the with the cantilevers over them. Talk a little bit about how would future businesses be able to use those spaces? Let's say if it was a restaurant or a cafe, is the intent to have outdoor seating, and how do you envision that working, given that, some of these sidewalks are not particularly wide?
Yeah, I think certainly the north edge of the site here and the south edge of the site lend themselves better towards accommodating outdoor seating groups, because we're creating a access path along the north edge of the site to walk by, and then the south edge of the site, it's much wider to accommodate these outdoor seating zones. If we go back to the overall floor plan here, the red, or I guess the pink zones are the retail. So yeah, we've been envisioning future retailers to, certainly I can't predict, what the retailers will be, but we anticipate that, perhaps restaurant zones would more likely occupy spaces that accommodate outdoor seating at the north and the south edge of the site, versus at the west and east side of the sites where the sidewalk is being proposed as wider. I don't anticipate there being outdoor seating going into the public realm and pinching down zones that are already tighter.
Okay, thank you.
Committee member Schaaf, did you have any questions?
Yeah, so I did continue on the questions about Bryant Street. Commissioner Ray had raised W Street around Whole Foods, and so I was just curious: is the concept of Bryant Street to that it would be sort of the shared street style, in accordance with how the district defines that in its standards?
Shared street. Oh, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, are you asking if it's going to be constructed to the district VDOT standards? Is that the question?
No, if it just, if it would be akin to that style of space, and how you are viewing people and vehicles moving throughout it.
Oh, okay. I don't know, Marco, I don't know if you have a response to that at this moment, but it is intended to promote both pedestrian and vehicular access at this time.
Yeah, we really wanted it to be, create vehicular access through to create porosity for the block and the street, but we anticipate it being kind of a slow drive through, and then, very comfortable for pedestrians to walk through and feel like they're connected with the space, not something like kind of a moment of repose from busier Georgia Avenue through the site, but certainly highlighting the pedestrian environment is our goal. But I'm not.
And just by way of background, if I can add, just for the committee members who are new, both this Bryant Street and W Street extension are improvements that Howard negotiated with DDOT in connection with its campus plan. So they're not really specific to the redevelopment of the site, but go to a larger discussion about connectivity between Howard and DDOT.
Sure, thank you. So are there design elements that are oriented towards discouraging vehicles from driving too fast or doing other things that pose a safety to the public on that Bryant Street, I guess is the question.
The traffic calming and probably like paving. I don't know if Daniel, you're
Absolutely. So yeah, you can think of it almost like an extended speed hump or speed bump, right? We use speed tables in other projects similarly, and then you also have the tactile nature of the paving here will feel different to a vehicle. So a combination of those two is really going to be kind of your main traffic calming measures, as well as kind of just visually turning onto Bryant Commons, right? It's a roadway that only is wide as it has to be. And then you have all these other elements in there to kind of visually slow down any vehicle that's going through there. And as well, it's not really meant for, cut through traffic. Obviously, we want porosity, DDOT wants porosity, but it's not being designed in such a manner as to encourage speeds whatsoever. And then as Marco touched on, right, it will have the flexibility to be closed as well. So for those occasions where you just want to not allow any vehicles onto here whatsoever.
I mean, on the speed issue, I mean, neither is the alleyway behind my house, but unfortunately, that doesn't stop people from driving like ridiculously fast. But moving on, I guess this is maybe a note to make for the committee and potentially also for Howard design team, that there was a proposal for 8th Street to be made one way in between V and W as part of the 8th Street transportation package. Which I understand is the block below the block of 8th Street below this development. But I see also, I mean, that there are design elements here that are that I assume require, you know, a certain flow, a certain design of 8th Street that could be in flux. And so I mean, maybe just to put that out there, I don't have a specific question related to that at this point.
And I just a note there, I know that Howard had given that comment on that transportation package before our ANC meeting, mentioning that they would prefer 8th Street to be two-way and then remove parking on the western half of 8th Street, which matches up with what they're saying here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess going back to the width of Bryant Street in this area, is the 18 feet required by DDOT, or I wasn't sure if there was something special because it's kind of a private road?
Yeah, you'll go ahead, Marco. So
18 feet for, I believe the roadway would be 22 feet wide. Is that, or was there?
Oh, is this 20? I thought I saw 18 feet earlier. Is this roadway 22 feet wide? So it's just following the standard of two-way travel has to have 11 feet wide lanes? That's
correct.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I guess that just, what sort of traffic calming is in here then? Because my main concern is that if there's not consistent traffic going both ways in here, it's going to be very easy for someone to, because I think it's Bryant is, I guess Bryant is one way going east and not west, is it? I remember.
It's going east one way.
Okay. So it'd be more of a concern of someone picking up speed, turning right on 8th Street, which wouldn't really be possible then, huh? Okay. Okay. And then I assume, given that DDOT had included this in the negotiations, they're okay with the curb cut on Georgia here? Because I've seen them push back on other projects that have added in curb cuts on Georgia, given the bus lanes that are coming.
Yeah, DDOT uses this as a street cut, right? It's part of adding in porosity where it's missing. So they're on board with this.
Got it. Okay. And then I had one other question. 1 second. Actually, that's it. Sorry. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Otherwise, we can move to folks that are in the audience. All right, folks that are in the audience, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to raise your hand. And if you are dialed in by phone, it is *9 to raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hand. All right. I think we are good to go then. I'm sure the rest of the ANC will have a lot of questions, so we'll probably, if you could share these materials with us, we can share with them. I know Commissioner Footer wasn't able to join today, and this covers part of his district. I think it's entirely in his district, and so I'm sure he'll be following up with a lot of other questions and comments as well. Are there any other questions or comments from the team for the committee?
Yes, Commissioner Jacobson. So, will the committee advance this to, when is the next, I guess, the ANC meeting?
The ANC meeting is July 26th because it's the fourth Wednesday every month. Let me just make sure. Yeah, Wednesday, July 26th at 7 p.m.
Okay, and will you advance the application or to the full ANC for consideration at that date?
Yes, we will definitely discuss it there. It's a question for the committee whether or not we want to advance it like from this meeting. So we'll take a vote on that. I'm okay with like at least the current framework, and there might be some adjustments between now and then given feedback from other commissioners. But yeah, we'll get to the voting in a minute.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Commissioner Ray?
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll certainly, I think we'll vote here in a minute to move this along. I'm sure I'm going to give some thought if I have any comments or things that we would want to include in our report. But I mean, generally, I'm supportive. I mean, there's no reason for us not to support the curb cuts where they are, the trees where they are, the cantilever protrusions into the public space from the balconies. I mean, there's nothing particularly here to be concerned with, but you know, we may have some comment or try to make sure that there's language in whatever the Public Space Committee approves around some of the concerns that you heard tonight. But I think for the most part, everything is looking good. Thank you.
Yeah, and the one thing that I didn't echo that I really agree with is putting in some sort of retractable bollards on Bryant Street. I think that'd be very helpful for activating the space more for pedestrians when the time comes. So.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that adds a lot of expenses to the project, but wondering like, does it save money in the long run by putting it in the ground now and you're ripping it up? And just something to consider.
Yeah, I've seen similar things with ones that you could actually just place in place as well versus, you know, the potentially retractable ones. But that's a great consideration. We'll make sure that we.
Oh yeah, just like having materials on hand to close it off when you need to. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone from the team for joining. I will move you all back to the attendee role, or you can do that yourself, I think, and then we will go ahead and go to the voting.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Oh, I might have just clicked ask to unmute when I didn't mean to on someone. Oh well, we'll see in a second. Yeah, so I think we can go ahead and just take a vote on the general framework, and we'll probably make adjustments between now and the ANC meeting. I think the main thing that I would want to include in the report is, like Commissioner Ray suggested, something to the effect of, you know, having quicker ability to close the street to vehicular traffic when needed.
And I might, and again, I don't know how the Public Space Committee looks at this for the future, but whether or not they want to include any wording around how future sidewalk cafes might get used. You know, it could be just something that we point out just to make sure that they've at least thought about it in advance.
Yeah, I'm good with that. So I'll write something up noting the use of making sure that the applicant includes something on sidewalk cafes and on the ability to close the street to vehicular traffic on a more rapid pace than. It doesn't have to be the retractable bollards. It could just be like materials that they have on hand, like I don't know what they're called, but the bigger things that block traffic. Committee member Shop, is there anything on your mind that you'd like to see added in that report?
I mean, the only thing is about the traffic calming or other measures on Bryant there. I mean, especially given that there was a plan to not have curbs in a portion of that as well, and just if we could encourage more thinking and perhaps more design around that specifically.
I'm good with that. All right, all those in favor of including those 3 items in a report to the ANC and generally approving the application otherwise, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 3 and there is no one else here. So I will mark that as a passed motion. Thanks again to the entire team for joining tonight. Really appreciate your time. And then I have hopefully one quick resolution to go over. I think I had sent out a couple of others, but we can table those for now in the interest of time. I'm gonna pull that resolution up. So this is something that came out of the Multimodal Advisory Committee and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Those are committees that have members from the public serving on them across the district. I think one from each ward, or one from each council member actually. And so I've been talking to some of the folks on MAC, which is the Multimodal Advisory Committee, about some of their proposals. And one letter that they wrote to district government and the council recently was on a task force to boot and tow vehicles with over $1,000 in fines. So the idea here is that we know the cars that are racking up a lot of fines. And sorry, when I say over $1,000, it's in speeding fines. So we know who the dangerous drivers are. We know which vehicles are consistently traveling at a high speed. There isn't really a system right now of adding points to a license or anything like that. So one way to remove these more reckless vehicles off of the street is to target those that are consistently incurring large fines in moving violations. And so the goal here is to ask the district government to have some sort of goal, increasing by 10% every year, starting at 20%, which is further down here, right here. Starting with 20% of getting those vehicles booted and or towed. And then it just goes through some other statistics on boot eligible vehicles in DC, the amount of unpaid fines, and then just approaches that we would recommend to DPW, DDOT, and DMV. So one approach is to look at moving citation data and then generate a prioritized list of vehicles. So you could target the top 100 or top 1,000 vehicles that have speeding violations and target those for booting and towing. And if you've done some of this investigation yourself in the past, you come to notice that a lot of the vehicles that you're seeing end up having fines consistently racked up in the same location. So you can, when I've looked at some of these folks that have racked up thousands of dollars in fines, you can see they're consistently speeding in X location, and they consistently get parking violations like every couple of days on these 2 streets. So it wouldn't be that hard to find the vehicle if you put some effort into it. I will pause here for questions and comments from members of the committee. Commissioner Ray?
Forgive me for not having already read this, but when we call it a task force, is the intent, is it really just a group, is it really just a team within DPW that would then try to implement this as a strategy? Or because when we call it a task force, that kind of brings to mind that we're talking about a group that kind of comes up with how to do this. I think we know how they need to do it. I think they know how to. They just have to be willing to do exactly what you said, which is look at the data, see where the people are, and go find them. Which is what they're doing. Instead, they travel around looking for people who have a certain number of tickets, and when they find anyone, whether or not that's $100 or $10,000, they boot the guy that they find.
Yeah, that's fair. I can change task force. I'll just change task force at the top to DPW because I don't actually use task force anywhere else in the letter I've noticed. And it is DPW that does the booting and towing.
Yeah, DPW does the booting. And they supposedly were hiring more people. I don't know if they were successful in hiring more people. I know hiring is generally difficult these days, but that was the intent.
Yeah, my thought process here is if they're coming up with their priorities, I'd prefer them to prioritize the vehicles that are consistently speeding. And I don't know what their current process is, but my interpretation from seeing them is that they're just finding vehicles that are, maybe parked illegally and ticketing them. And I'd rather them be spending that time analyzing the data and finding the more dangerous vehicles.
Well, absolutely. And then I'm sure to some degree, it might also be, where you do this will have a different kind of impact. If you're only going around certain neighborhoods, you're going to find certain types of individuals, as opposed to, again, the people who have been the most reckless, which is going to require you to look at the specific data by person and not go into a community. I mean, which is what we see. I mean, suddenly one block will have 9 of these.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Committee Member Schaaf.
Do we, so where does the $1,000 number come from? And do we have a sense of how many vehicles this might apply to?
Don't have a sense. The $1,000 number it's a nice sounding number.
It's high.
Yeah. It's high enough that that like whoever is doing this doesn't really care about the impact that they're having.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is a public list of the number of vehicles that have more than $1,000 in fines. You could try to FOIA that. I suspect that you would not get that. They would say that they don't have the data because they don't have it compiled already. And if they don't have it compiled already and they don't have a report, then it's work for them to create the data set, which means that it's not FOIAble.
Yeah. That makes sense. So I actually, there was an initiative by this professor at University of Virginia that I had signed on to, that this was also one of the recommendations. And as part of this letter, they mentioned the statistic that there's 500 vehicles with greater than or equal to 40 violations. 40 sort of violations of one sort or another, and that's as of December of 2021. It doesn't necessarily indicate speeding violations or what, as far as I can tell, but it sounds like we're probably talking about at least 500 cars, probably, but probably a few thousand maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think 40 fines would be much higher than $1,000. So I suspect, but I'll take that as follow up because I think I know who worked with that professor. I think it was Brian Hart. So he might actually have the data, and I just didn't know that.
It's possible. Ryan Calder.
Yeah. I don't know Ryan Calder as well as I know some of the other people that helped him with the letter.
The only other question I have is, why this particular policy solution rather than others? Is it because that this is something that seems sort of practical and reasonable to implement within, with the data that the district already has, or for some other reason?
My preferred policy solution would have like a points-based system, and when you speed, you get assessed points. But the council had already considered that and voted that down last year, right? So this seems like a reasonable approach given current law. Happy to entertain other ideas and include them though.
I don't have a particular.
Yeah.
So just curious.
Yeah, if you come up with anything for future meetings.
Okay, thank you. Looks good to me.
Any questions or comments from members of the community? All right. Any other comments from this group? All right, I make a motion with unanimous consent that we pass this letter on to the full ANC for consideration. Any dissent? All right, motion carries. Any other items for official business that I neglected to include? All right, I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adjourn until the next TPS meeting, which takes place on Wednesday, September 6th at 7 p.m. Via Zoom. And just to make it very clear, there is no August meeting. We're taking August off, and the next general ANC 1E meeting is in 3 weeks on Wednesday, July 26th. Is there any dissent to my motion to adjourn until September 6th? All right, motion carries. Thank you everyone for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, good
Thank
night.
you.